I have no idea what I'm going to ask you.
Oh, I have no idea either. So okay. already we have something in common.
We do have something in common. I am so excited to introduce David Feherty. Well, I'm not introducing him. He's already been introduced a lot, but he is here as a honoree of the 13th annual The Langley, fundraiser of the Northern California PGA Foundation, benefiting PGA Hope, helping our veterans. And you know, David, as we kind of talked a little bit ago, that seems to check all the boxes for you. You were a friend of Jim Langley. You have done tremendous work for the troops as well. This seems to be a perfect fit for you.
Yeah, I'm very honored. I can't believe it. Actually, when I look at the people who've received this award, just to be thought of in the same sentence is amazing for me.
Jim Langley was a special guy, as we kind of
Yes.
talked about. Tell me a story about Jim that you remember.
I remember I was having difficulty tying my shoelaces in the locker room at Cypress Point, and Jim looked at me and he said, "Really?" You know, for a man with one arm, he could tie his shoelaces a whole lot better than I could. Yeah.
That's true, and that's Jim. You spent 20 years on tour. You spent 20 plus years with the media. How do you balance all of that, and what kind of jumps out at you? What's the do you have one that means more to you than the other?
You know, I had a decent professional career. I won a few times. I played Ryder Cup. But I was never going to be one of those truly top echelon players. I didn't have what it takes. You know, successful people. I had a show for 10 years there on the Golf Channel where I interviewed, you know, captains of industry and athletes and actors and musicians. And the one thing that they all had in common was that in order to be as successful as they were, they had to have wanted to be in a place where they knew they were going to be uncomfortable. And I never really wanted that as a golfer, but when I got into broadcasting, it felt like that was a fit for me. I did want to be in that place where I knew I was going to be uncomfortable. And, you know, so I think the last 25 years, you know, with CBS and now with NBC, I feel much more at home in that environment.
That's great. Of all of those people you interviewed, and you did interview everybody, I mean, you know, the names would just tick off people's mouths. Everybody would know the names. Who really stands out? I know it's hard. It's kind of like ask who's your favorite kid, but
Yeah.
you know, what are the stories that jump out at you immediately?
Well, Tom Watson will always be special to me. Tom has been like a big brother to me over the last 10 or 15 years, and helped get me sober, which was enormously important, as you can imagine. There were people like Bill Russell, maybe the greatest winner in the history of American sports, who was. You just knew when you shook Bill Russell's hand that you were in the presence of greatness. There was I mean, I feel that electricity now just thinking about it. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that laugh like liquid gold pouring out of the heavens, and from a similar height. He changed my life. I asked him a question. I remember, you know, if you know what should a young athlete do if they're thinking about turning pro, you know, in any sport? And he thought for a little while, and he stroked this sort of stubbly chin, you know, and he said, "Be kind." And, you know, just those two words, especially, you know, the environment that we're in today, you know, the climate that we have, you know, mean more than they ever did.
You know, you talked about the liquid gold, and as I listen to you, you really turn a phrase. I mean, you have a way of painting with your words. And was that always there, or is that something newly acquired when you're on that tightrope?
Well, I think it has something to do with being Irish. You know, the poetry and the music and the writing and that kind of thing. Maybe, and you know, my mom and dad. My father had a great turn of phrase. And my mother was a tremendous wit. You know, a very funny woman. I'm lucky still to have her. She's 91. She's just started piano lessons.
Of course, you learn
Like-
something new.
Like you do, yeah. So I think I'm just a product of my environment.
David, you have a somewhat of a reputation for having a kind soul and a kind heart for veterans. As a matter of fact, Peter Jacobs has said to me earlier today, I don't know anybody in America that's done more for veterans than David Feherty. You won the Outstanding Civilian Service Award with the Army, which is apparently the third highest civilian award our country has for helping veterans. Again, as I said, it sort of fits that you're here with PGA Hope. Where does that come from? What is it about the veterans that?
I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles and surrounded by soldiers, and I had a keen sense of what it's like to be in that urban warfare, if you like. Although I mean, where I grew up, it was a little out of the way. It wasn't in the main sort of center of violence or anything like that. But there was still, bombs going off and sectarian murders and troops on the street and roadblocks, things like that. So when 9/11 happened here, I already fallen in love with the country, and I'd been here since '93, and I just couldn't bear the thought of that kind of trouble coming, to mainland America. I really couldn't bear the thought of it, and it took me a little while. My wife always wanted me to be Irish, which I was, and but in 2006 I went to Iraq with the USO and came back, and I needed to be an American. I couldn't believe the quality of the kids that we had over there and what they were doing, and how it wasn't being reported in our media. The restraint that they showed on a daily basis, the compassion that they had for the people over there, and the extraordinary bond that they have with each other. So I came home and immediately applied, for American citizenship, and it took 2 or 3 years, but I think that's the reason that I identify, with the military so much. I've been back to Iraq and Afghanistan since, to entertain the troops, and it's. You talk about what I do for them. There are 4 reasons that this country is so great, and they are soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Nothing else. Nothing else. And I think it was Jefferson that said, all we need are teachers and soldiers, and everything in between will take care of itself. And that's the truth. It's just as true today as it was then. So I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities I have to be with them. And today is just another example of that.
PGA Hope is going to be in a better place because you've been with us tonight, David. It's thinking about what I was going to ask you is remarkable because most of the time, you're being David Feherty, the media person, and to have a moment to just talk to David Feherty from the heart, it's really important that you've given me this time. I can't thank you enough. Not only do we appreciate you being here, but our country's in a better place having you here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank
David
you.
Feherty, the Langley.